everyone. Welcome to our webinar, our basic introduction for Pear Deck for Google Slides. Thank you for joining me today. While I wait here for a few more people to log in, I'll introduce myself real quickly. My name is Mindy Saboro, and I am a customer success representative with Pear Deck. I work in our help desk, so right away I'll let you know if you have any questions. Please definitely reach out to us at help@peardeck.com. But I am recently out of the classroom. I did have the opportunity to teach last spring, taught 5th grade math and science. So got a little bit of remote learning on the teaching side under my belt. And I always like to start by saying thank you to all of you for all that you do. I know firsthand everything that you're being asked to do, all the hats you're being asked to wear. Still have 3 of my own in school. I'm amazed on a daily basis of what you all are doing to accommodate our students' needs right now. So thank you so much for that. And really hoping that by the end of this webinar here today, that you're going to start feeling comfortable using Pear Deck in your classroom and creating those lessons using Google Slides. So this webinar is geared towards Google Slides, and we will be hands-on today. So if you want to jump in and join me and build this deck along with me on your desktop or your laptop, you are welcome to. But I'm really hoping that by the end of this webinar, you're feeling comfortable using Google Slides, you're feeling comfortable pulling in those interactive slides through Pear Deck and seeing how really amazing this tool is for keeping all your students engaged. We're going to jump right into it. So our webinar topics for today, we're going to look at what Pear Deck is. From them, we're just going to do the big picture from Google Slides to a Pear Deck session. What does that mean? So we're just going to go through an overview of that. And then we are going to jump right into the Pear Deck features by actually building a Google Deck and creating a lesson. We will start a session. We won't spend a lot of time in the session because it will take a fair amount of time to build this Google Deck. But we will jump into the session just a little bit at the end of our webinar so you can see what that looks like. But I highly recommend after this webinar that you look into Pear Deck Accelerated. That will review a little bit of what we do today, go into maybe a little greater depth of what we talk about today. And then it will also spend more time in the actual session going through the session instructor paced, student paced, as well as our premium feature, the teacher dashboard. So definitely look into that one. After this one, if you don't have time to actually sign up for the webinar, there is a link that you will receive after this webinar within this presentation that is a link for recorded Pear Deck Accelerated. So why Pear Deck? I know when I taught, we're brought to our attention, teachers are it's brought to their attention a lot of different educational applications. For me, Pear Deck stands out. One, because it's not another game format. It is a format for which students are really learning how to learn. So I love that. Again, it's not a game. They're really figuring out, okay, my participation, my engagement in this lesson is really going to make a difference for me. And they're going to start to see that success in their overall achievement level. And because of that, they're going to continue to stay engaged in teachers' lessons. So I love that about the platform. It is a comfortable platform for your students to interact. It's all done anonymously, and so there's no names linked to the projected responses that you share with the class. So it's giving every student in your class a voice without that fear of embarrassment of having that wrong answer. And again, that overall engagement is going to be huge for their achievement level. And it gets away from that. I know I was very guilty of asking a question, 1 or 2 students, and possibly the same 1 or 2 students are the ones answering that question. And you see that body language of the rest of your class. They're checking out, they're not engaged anymore. And Pear Deck's not going to allow them to do that. So I love that. And on the teacher end of it, I love it because you're seeing everything in real time. It is when you're showing those answers, when you're projecting those responses, you're seeing everything in real time. And so you get to see how your class is progressing through that lesson. And if you do have that premium feature of the teacher dashboard where you can see names linked to responses, you're getting to see how each individual student in your class is progressing through that lesson, Really wonderful for very quickly pulling a small group and extending that learning with that group after the lesson because of being able to observe their responses throughout that lesson. It's also awesome because if you have dabbled a little bit in creating your lessons and using Google Slides for your lessons, you're able to pull all of those files open and just then use the Pear Deck sidebar to apply those interactive features. So you don't, in some cases, have to reinvent the wheel. And if you are just starting from scratch, everything that you create with these Google Slides decks, those are yours. So you're going to save those in your Google Drive file. You're going to have access to them year after year. So once you create it once, it's there for you to use. And then the next time that rolls around in your curriculum for the following year, you can pull that open and use it in your class. It's already done. So how do we get started? So we have to set up a Pear Deck account, and we'll walk through doing that here today. And then also need the Pear Deck add-on for Google Slides. So I'm going to show you both of those steps to get started. And if you haven't done either one of those, again, I welcome you today. This is hands-on. So I welcome you today to go along with me in setting some of this up. And then we're going to actually create a lesson. So I've got just a really simple 6 Google Slide lesson on the water cycle that we're going to create together. And again, welcome you to jump right in, open up your Google Slides file, and build this with me. So once you build that deck, once you create that Google Slides file, which we then refer to as a Google Slides deck, you can then use that deck to start lessons or start your Pear Deck session. So you have a green session button, lesson button that we'll look at in that sidebar that starts that Pear Deck session for you. Then you have options to select a instructor-paced session, which is going to be more of your synchronous learning. So that's going to be more of your whole group setting, and you are going to be in control of going through that lesson and the pace of that lesson. Or you could set it up as a student-paced session, and in that regard, it's going to be on the students' pace. They're going to be able to go through those slides at their own pace and independently, so more of your asynchronous type situation. When you are in a session, there are 3 different views. So we have the projector view, which if you are in your classroom, that's what you're going to project up to the front of the class. That's where you're going to share those responses anonymously. So everything that your students input, they're going to be able to view that up in that projector view, everyone's responses. And then they also have their student view, which is going to be on their device. And this is where they are going to interact and respond to those interactive questions. They will see their response in their student view, but they will not see any other student's response in their student view. So that's going to be done up in that projector view. And then you'll see here my teacher has what looks like an iPad. That's where you could have our last view, which is the teacher dashboard. Again, that is one of our premium features, but that is where you are able to see student names linked to their responses. And you can control the teacher dashboard and that projector view are kind of synced together. So you can monitor those responses and choose specific responses on your teacher dashboard, and those will project to that projector view. So the teacher dashboard and projector view will work together. We show it here on an iPad because it's linked to names. So if you had that capability of having it in a separate device, it just keeps from accidentally displaying those responses linked with the student names. However, it is not necessary. Your teacher dashboard will also open up in a new window right in your main device, and that'll also help keep from displaying those accidentally. So we're going to jump right into it. This is the first slide. I've built this slide. We're not going to build this one because I want to really focus on those Pear Deck interactive slides. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the water cycle day and build a really quick lesson about the water cycle. But before we do that, we need to know how to get started. So to get started, I'm going to go to peardeck.com. And within here, you go to teacher login. So if you haven't done this yet, feel free to go ahead and go to peardeck.com, go on to teacher login. It automatically logs me in because I'm already set up. But if you're doing this for the first time, you're going to get a screen that says log in with Google or log in with Microsoft. select the platform that you'll be using. And then we also select that you use, or also suggest that you use your teacher email address. This way, if you are on a premium trial, or if you have an individual premium subscription and it's linked to that teacher email address, if your school should ever decide to partner with Pear Deck and provide that subscription for you, then you can go ahead and just easily roll that access to your school subscription right through your teacher email. So that's why we suggest, if you're going to pick an email, pick your teacher's email to go ahead and log into Pear Deck. And then within this home page, I can click on create a lesson and start my lesson right from here. And we're going to come back and take a look at that. You can also start a Google Slides lesson from your Google Drive. If you start it right from your Google Drive, it's going to save it right to your Google Drive wherever you have it, or will move it and place it within your Google Drive. If I start it from my Pear Deck account with this create a lesson button, it's going to automatically store it in my Decks folder. So once you set up your account, within your My Drive, you're going to have a Pear Deck folder. I've just already clicked on mine, but you'll see a Pear Deck folder here in your My Drive. When I click on it, I'm going to see these different folders within that Pear Deck folder. The one we're going to focus on today is the Decks. And if I create a lesson by starting on my home page on my Pear Deck account, it's going to automatically save that lesson here in this folder. So just know that when you start it there, that's where you're going to be able to go back and find it in your Google Drive. Let me back up in here. You'll also see vocabulary is a folder in here as well. That's our vocabulary game that you have access to in your Pear Deck account. Takeaways, those are documents that get published at the end of your session. Those are Google Docs that you can share with your students. We're not going to talk a lot about those today. You will receive a copy of those. But again, that Pear Deck Accelerator webinar will be great to understand and learn a little more about those takeaways. And then the exports, and then published files if you've decided to publish a file and share it with someone else. But again, we're going to focus on the Deck one here. And then if I wanted to, I could click on the Google waffle and select slides, and I could start and build my slide right from here. So I could hit blank and start creating my slide here. I'm actually going to back this up so that we can all start at the same place. So if you will go back to that home page on your Pear Deck account, and if you're ready to start building with me, go ahead and click on create a lesson. And when I open this up, I'm going to make sure that I have my Pear Deck add-on. So this first slide is just directions on how to get that Pear Deck add-on if this is your first time opening up that add-on. You can delete this slide. I'm going to walk through the steps of how to get that add-on. So here in your menu bar, you have add-ons. You'll go down to get add-ons and type Pear Deck in here if it's not showing up right here towards the top. Mine is already installed, so I'm going to go ahead and not click on it this time, but you would want to go ahead and click on it, and it's going to install it into that add-ons menu in that Google bar in your slides bar here. So then to go ahead and open that add-on, I click on add-ons, Pear Deck for Google Slides, open up that Pear Deck add-on, and now I'm going to have access to all those interactive Pear Deck slides and tools that I can now start making my Google Slides lesson interactive for my students. This is highlighted in yellow. When this is highlighted in yellow, I can simply just delete that to get rid of that. We're going to start from scratch. A quick overview of your sidebar here and your tools. We have a template library. Pear Deck has a wonderfully creative team that creates templates for you so that you can pull these into your lesson and save some time. A great range of types of questions that you can pull into your lesson. We've divided them up here into subcategories. We have beginning of lesson, during lesson, end of lesson, more critical thinking, social emotional learning. We used to have to do a morning meeting Those are great for that. And then your specific subject areas here as well. Just a great starting point. Once you pull these into your lesson that you're building and creating, you can customize them however you would like. We are going to start here. If you will click on beginning of lesson, and then we are going to scroll down to this student sitting on the stump here thinking. Click on it once, and it's going to pull it into that deck that you are now building for your lesson. Everything on here, you'll see when I click on it, everything on here can be changed. So once you pull this slide in, you can customize it to fit your specific needs of your lesson. I'm going to change this text to tell me what you already know about the water cycle. And so if you haven't worked much in Google Slides, I am going to go a little slower and show you how to work with some of the tools in Google Slides as well. When you see that cursor, you can just click down and highlight all that text and go ahead and start typing what you would like to replace that text with. And we are going to say, tell me what you already know about the water cycle. So I'll give you just a second to go ahead and type that in on yours. And I will tell you, I'm seeing some things go into the chat here. I do keep the chat closed, and I will stop periodically to answer questions. If I keep the chat open, then I get totally sidetracked and lose track of time. So just so you know, I do keep it closed. I'm going to glance here real quickly. All right, so let me back up just a second here. So we started at home, our homepage of peardeck.com, and logged into our accounts, and we clicked create a lesson to get started. And now we're in that Google Slides starting to build our water cycle lesson. These template slides are already set up with an interactive feature. So this Pear Deck bar down here is telling me that this is an interactive slide. Students will be responding in some manner to this slide. Specifically, when I see this image, this is a text response. So it says, students, write your response. They will receive a text box that they can respond. And then once they type in there, that automatically is going to go through to that projector view to display for the class. This bar is really important to leave right where it is. You don't want to shift it around too much. It can break that interactive capability. So you definitely, where it comes placed in on that slide, it's best just to leave it right there. And just like that, we're done with our first slide of our lesson. So we're going to go ahead and do our second slide. Down here in the middle, so we've looked at the template library, and then down here in the middle of our sidebar, these are tools which I can apply to any slide that I create. So this was an already created slide, and now I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to create my own slide and add one of these interactive capabilities to the slide. So I have a choice of text, which was the response that's going on this slide right here. A choice, so we can do more of a multiple choice or a true false. Number slide, which is going to be strictly a numerical answer. We'll talk a little more about each of these when we create these slides. Website slide, you can embed websites, you can embed other videos, you can embed Google Forms, Google Docs, a lot of the other educational applications like Kahoot, Edpuzzle, Padlet, Flipgrid. Any of those other applications that you might use in your classroom can be embedded in a website slide, and students will use that site right within their Pear Deck session. So they alleviate having to jump through and navigate different tabs. And then draw slide will let the students really very versatile as far as interacting with that canvas. They have a palette of drawing tools, a pencil, a text tool, a highlighter, color palette. And again, we'll talk a little bit about more that when we get to that type of slide. And then draggable slide is the one that we are going to create next. So draw and draggable are our two premium feature slides. but text choice, number, and website are provided and available within that free subscription. So to make our new slide, we're going to click on this drop-down arrow here in the upper left-hand corner, and we are going to add a blank slide. So now that we have our blank slide, I'm going to put a title on this slide. We're going to call this the water cycle. So I would like to click on this text tool, and when I click on the text tool and click on this slide, it's going to give me more tools to use to edit and format my text box. So in this case, we are going to look up here and we are going to go ahead and keep this as Arial. And then I'm going to change this to 36. You can type it in, or you'll see there's already an option there for 36, either one, to go ahead and set that at 36. Bold, black, we'll keep that's great. And we're going to go ahead and keep this left justified. So there's my align button. And we're just going to type in the water cycle and stop there. Once I have that typed in, I'm going to change the sizing of my font because I'm going to return and now type the directions for this slide. So I'll keep it as Arial. I'm going to change this to 2418. I'm going to change it to 18. I'll take the bold off for the directions. Again, black is good and left justified is good. I'm just going to hit return and go ahead and type the directions. The directions for this are going to be place the draggable on terms associated with the water cycle. So place the draggable on terms. Place the draggable on terms. I'm just going to go ahead and do a hard return here. Associated with the water cycle. Back that up to a lowercase. So we have our title, the water cycle. The students on this slide are going to place a draggable item on the terms associated with the water cycle. I can shift when this crosses. When you get those two crossing arrows, you can click down and move this box around on here. I could just move it up here a little bit. I am keeping this information off to the side here because I know that the draggable items will load here in the upper right-hand corner, and they do consistently. So that helps in formatting your slides, knowing that those draggable items are going to load right here in this right-hand corner. We're going to pull an image into this. So to pull an image, you can click on the shortcut here, or you can go to Insert, Image. And we're going to pull this in by searching the web right within my Google Slides. So again, you can go to Insert, Image here, search the web, or you can click on the shortcut here and get to search the web. Just going to type in the water drop clip art. And pull this one in. You can select whichever one you would like. I'm going to pull in this first one. Now this one has a clear background, so really not a reason to crop this one at all, but I do want to show you this cropping tool because it's great if you have an image, but you want to take out some of the image and display only a portion of it. So this is your cropping tool in Google Slides. And when you are when this is highlighted, you're going to end up with a little different border, and you're going to see these little marks around here that are a little bit darker. When you click on those, you can scale this down. Well, not scale it, actually crop away some of the image. And then I'm going to make this water drop just a little smaller. It's a little bit big, and bring it in here beside this title. Another item under arrange, you can change some things up with your images as well. So for this one, I'm going to go into rotate, and I'm just going to flip it. So that was under arrange. rotate, flip it horizontally, so it's looking at my title and my directions. Okay, so we have that information on the slide. We've got our directions. Now let's give them the item that they're going to interact with. What are they going to drag those draggables to? So we're going to create a table. So if I go into Insert and Table, we're going to make a 3x2 table. So we're going to go across 3 and down 2. And once you click down, it'll bring in that table into your slide. Now, again, I know that those draggables are going to line up over here. So I'm going to change the sizing of this just a little, and I can do that by grabbing onto these dots that I see around this table. So I'm going to pull this down a little, and I'm going to bring this in a little bit. And get that situated on the slide. Now, I might even change up the border of this table to match, be more of a blue color since I'm talking about the water cycle. So to do that, I can go up here to my line tool, this border color, click on it, and I can select these custom colors are pulled in from that slide that I pulled in from the template library. So to keep everything consistent throughout my slide deck, I'm going to go ahead and pull from these colors. And then that just quickly changes the border to blue. Now within here, I need to type a word in each one of these cells, and I don't want to have to format each cell each time I type the word. So I'm going to click in that first cell. And once you see the cursor, you're going to click down, hold, and drag across to highlight all those cells. So I click in that first cell, see the cursor, click down, and drag across to highlight. Now I can format all those cells in one shot. So I'm going to keep it as Arial. I'm going to change this to 18. We will make these bold so they stand out a little bit under those draggables. Black is good. My alignment, I am going to center these. So my top one centers from left to right. I'm going to go in the middle here. And then the bottom row centers top to bottom. So I'm going to go right in the middle of that cell. Then when I click back in that first cell, my cursor should be right in the middle of that cell. We are going to type some water cycle terms and some not water cycle terms. So precipitation, then we'll have transpiration, and transaction, composition, condensation, and the last one is evaporation. Okay, within this chart, there are 4 water cycle terms. So I want the students to be able to drag a draggable to each of those terms. So I'm going to come over here to that draggable slide and click on it. The only items that students will be able to move around in a Pear Deck session are the items that are found in this draggable slides menu. So if you have made Google Slides in the past and you've created images on the slide that students move around, just please note that when you do start a Pear Deck session, those will be static and students will not be able to move those around. So the items they are going to be able to drag and move around on that slide are going to be found here in this menu. So if I scroll through, there are multiple different types of images that you can pull in for them to move. The dot is fine for this one, but I am going to change the color to blue since we're talking about the water cycle. And I needed 4, so I'm going to add 3 more. You can add up to 5 draggables. This will size those draggables, so this gives you a little preview of what the students will see. I can size those, make them a little bit smaller to fit in those boxes. So I'll give you just a second to go ahead and get yours squared away. Then once you have that size the way you want it, all those draggables set up the way you would like, you can go ahead and update that slide. And we're all set. Second slide done. So now, again, we will not see that in our view here, But we see down here that this is an interactive slide and students will be dragging 4 different circles on this slide. So that Pear Deck bar, again, super important to let it just sit right there and not shift that around. Okay, I am gonna stop right there for just a second, let everyone get kind of caught up. Go ahead and take a look here at the chat real quick and just see a couple questions. I may not be able to hit all the questions right now, but I will keep stopping periodically. So I have, let's see here. It says this will allow Pear Deck see and download all your Google Drive files. Do I have to allow that? So yes, so to be able to use Pear Deck, you do need to allow it to talk with Google Drive. Google Drive and Pear Deck are going to work together. And that's how you end up and get all these files that you're creating saved to that Google Drive. And when you pull those from your Google Drive and you go to start this lesson, you need to be linked to that Pear Deck account with the same email address. So you're going to have your Google Drive that uses your teacher's email address and your Pear Deck account that uses your teacher's email address. Those both need to be open to be able to present a session. So you do have to allow that for them to communicate. Can I use animated such as click on, whoops, that jumped. So the Google Slides animation, yes, you can use Google Slides animation. You have to have the PowerUp extension for that. We're not going to go into great detail about that. But again, that Pear Deck Accelerated, we'll talk more about the PowerUp extension. You will need to have that if you use Google Animations in your slides. And again, if you can't go to the actual webinar, there will be a link to a recorded one in your information that you're going to receive after this webinar. Can you embed Edpuzzle? Yes. You can. Where are the draggables? So the draggables are going to be seen in that student view. We're not going to see those in this view right now. Can you only use draggables in premium? Yes, draggables is a premium feature. And how did you put the title slide, the water cycle? Is it just a text box in the slides or something in Pear Deck? Nope, that's just a text box in Google Slides. So we've got a little bit of both going on within this webinar, because this webinar is, our hopes with this webinar is also helping those who want to use Pear Deck but haven't really used Google Slides yet. So that text box just simply comes from that Google Slides menu. Having difficult being in Zoom and doing Pear Deck, they were on iPads and iPhones. So you can use iPads and iPhones to view and participate in a session. For any issues that you are having, I apologize. It'll be hard to address those right now because of the information we need to get through here in the webinar, but please reach out to help@peardeck.com so that we can take a look at that for you. So draggables, you can't customize draggables right now, but that is a request that we receive frequently. I had somebody ask if they could be a word, if they could have a draggable word. So we're not able to do that right now. So what we do suggest is maybe what it is with whatever you're doing with those words, maybe having the list of words be on your slide and students moving a draggable to those. But that's a request we hear frequently. And we encourage you to reach out to us with those requests, because we do tally those. We keep track of all of our user feedback, and it truly is instrumental in how Pear Deck will evolve. Can you show me add audio? We will be showing, I'm going to get to every tool that's in that slide. So we will get to adding audio too. So, and reviewing how to insert the chart, I'll show you that real quickly. And then we're going to keep going on here so that we've got time to get through all these slides. Inserting that table, and I will stop again to answer some questions, but you're going to go to insert and then table. You simply will move your mouse over how big you want that table to be. So we went over 3 and down 2, and then just click down, and that's going to bring that table into your slide. All right, we are going to start slide 3. So our next slide is going to be a multiple choice slide, and we're going to make it easy. We're going back to that template library, and we're going to pull in one that's already created. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the lesson, and I'm going to pull in this one right here. And with one click, it's going to bring it in as your next slide. Done, all formatted. We're just going to tweak it a little bit for our water cycle lesson. And down here, you'll see it's set up right now as a text slide, a text response. I don't want this as a text response. I'm preferring this be a choice response for the question I'm going to put on here. So I'm going to show you how we just simply delete that and bring in the choice slide instead. First, we'll go ahead and write in here what our question is. So I'm going to click down there by the question mark, hold down and drag to highlight all that. I'm actually going to keep my font consistent. I'm going to change that to Arial. And we'll change this to 24. We will make this bold. I will keep it centered and keep it black. That's all good. And so I'm going to type in here, select the stage of the water cycle when plants release water through their leaves. So select the stage of the water cycle when plants release water through their leaves. Now, I'm just going to stretch this. You can move and just really play with that formatting and get it exactly how you want it. I'm just stretching my text box a little bit to get that into 3 lines, holding down to move it and place it on that slide. Once you have those arrows crossing, that's when you can click down and move this all around your slide. Don't prefer to have a text response with this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that bar and just simply delete it. So you can click on it, cut it off that slide, delete it off that slide, and I'm going to change that interactive capability. So I'm going to go back here and back out of my template library, and I want an option slide for this one, a choice. So I'm going to click on choice and add in their choices. So they are going to have a choice of condensation. It pops up for me because I've typed these in frequently. First one is condensation, transpiration, and we'll do precipitation. I'm going to add one more. So we're going to add another option and do evaporation. Now, you have up to 26 options that you can keep adding. Not sure when you'd use 26, but that availability is there. You can also delete these back to just 2 and make this more of a true-false slide. Once you've got your selections in, you can go ahead and update that slide. And just like that draggable slide, I'm not going to see those options in my deck. When I launch this as a Pear Deck session and the students are in their student view, they're going to see those options to be able to select one of those options. So they can only select one of the options that you provide them. Okay, and just like that, we are done with that slide. Moving on to our next slide. Okay, we're going to go back and add a blank one and start from scratch. So again, over here in this upper left-hand corner, you can click on this sign, plus sign, in the drop-down menu and add in your blank slide. Okay, this one we are going to create a draw slide. So I started saying that the draw slide is extremely versatile. Pencil tool, highlighter tool, line tool, text tool, a large palette of colors. Great for, I taught math. It was wonderful for showing work, for a place for students to show work for a math problem. If you would like students to annotate a passage, placing a passage on there and having those tools for them to be able to annotate that passage. For littles, it's really wonderful for taking, if you've got images of papers that you print for your littles to work on, you could place those images right on this slide and let your littles use those tools to interact with that worksheet. So instead of having a hard copy, they can do it right within their Pear Deck session. So for this draw slide, there's quite a few. There's a little bit of directions of what I want the students to do here. I want them to create the water cycle, draw a picture of the water cycle. So what I'm going to do to help save time I'm just going to copy. If you are following along with me, I'm going to copy this text and put it into the chat so that you are able to just copy and paste that into the text box. So there it is. That's in that chat. If you want to go to the chat, highlight and copy that text. Back here in our slide, I'm going to do the same to save time. So I've copied that. So all I need to do is hit Command V or Control V, depending on the device that you are working, and paste that text. So it comes in like at that in a text box. And then again, I can go around to these boxes, have that change to an arrow, and drag and stretch this across the top of my slide. Now, the last thing I need to do, I'm having them draw a diagram. I've bolded some words in here. And to do that, you would simply just highlight the word and come up here and select bold to make some of these words stand out for them. And then I'm just simply going to click draw, and it's going to make this interactive. And in that student view, they're going to be provided with that canvas to be able to draw right on this slide. Down here, this tells me that this is a draw slide that the students will be able to interact with. Okay, just like that. Another slide down. Okay, the next one we're going to do, so we've done text, we've done choice, we've done draggable, we've done draw. So we're now going to take a look at a website slide. And again, like I said, the website slide is great for just embedding just about every other educational application that you use. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You can embed a Google form, you can embed a Google Doc, and it then just allows your students to stay in one place to work and not have to navigate between multiple tabs. So we're going to start with a brand new slide again. So I'm going to go ahead into and add a slide, a blank one. I am going to jazz it up a little bit and give this one a blue background. So to add some color to that background, I can go up to my background button. To select that color, I'm going to go down and use one of the colors that was pulled in from the slides I've used in the template library, just as nice for the consistency throughout your lesson, and change that background color. Then I'm just going to add some simple directions on this slide. So I'm going to click on that text box. And once I click on the text box, I'm going to click into my slide. And I'm going to figure out what my formatting is going to be before I get started. So to get that formatting, you want to make sure that you click in that box and see your cursor. Then you can go up and start setting all the formatting for this text box. So we are going to keep it Arial. And I'm going to change this to 36. I am going to bold this, but instead of black, I'm going to change this to white. And then this just very simply say, watch the video about the water cycle. Now, I might go ahead, I think I'll go ahead and center this. So I'm going to click down here and highlight that text. I think I like the way it looks better centered. So go up to that alignment tool and go ahead and click on centered. And then just move this here. Now we're going to go get that video. So I'll click on the website slide, and it's going to bring up and want a URL address. So I'm going to copy this into the chat so that you can jump to this video in your tab. So that URL is in your tab. And you wouldn't have to open it. Well, yes, you do. I'm sorry. That's just going to get you to the video. It's a little, we don't use this link We don't use this URL address for that website slide. We've got to go through a few steps here. So I'm going to give you just a second to open up that video. And then once it's open, you're going to go to share. And I would like that embed code. So I'm going to click on embed. And I don't want all this information. I only need a little piece of this information. So you want to look for that HTTPS, and you're going to copy that link inside of the quotation mark here. So right here and down to here. So I'll click right in front of the H and drag across there to highlight that link. Once highlighted, I still don't want to hit copy here because it wants to grab everything there. So I'm going to use Command V or Command C or Control C. And then once you do that, oops, let me get back in the right one. We're going to paste it. So Command V or Control V and paste it into that window. If everything is good with this URL address, you will see a preview here. So that's the telltale. If you see it there, your students are going to see it in their preview. So you want to make sure that you're seeing it here. If you don't and you see an unhappy face here, then you need to go back and see what might be wrong with this link. Did I copy it correctly? Is it a secure link? Because you won't be able to use a link that's not secure. Did I just back up and did I knock off one piece of it? Now I can't see it anymore. So as long as you can see this preview, it's good to go. Your students are going to see it in their view, so you can go ahead and update slide. And I will walk through those steps again. So in that slide or in that video, you go to share, embed, only grabbing the URL in here. So starting with HTTPS, dragging across and highlighting it, and then hitting Command C or Control C. Now, I do know sometimes when I go in here and do this, and I'm not sure why it does it, but it won't let me just copy that URL address. It wants me to copy everything. So if that's happening, it's not a problem. You can copy everything. And then when you go back into this website slide and paste it in that URL window, you're just going to have to back up some of that information and delete some of that information until you're seeing just this address and then the preview here in the window. Here is the add audio. So pretty simple use of the add audio, but it's going to walk through how you do add audio to the slide. So we'll click on add audio, and all I want you to do is simply read the directions that are on this slide. So when I do that, click here. Add audio will let you go ahead and record right now, or you can upload an audio file. So if you want to do your recording somewhere else in some other application, you can do it there and then upload the file here. But for right now, I'm just going to do it in here. And I'm just going to say, please watch this video about the water cycle. Pause it, save it to listen to it real quickly. Please watch this video about the water cycle. And if I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the slide. It's going to give you this little clip art image. That's not what is going to be clicked on to listen to the audio in the student view. This is just a clue for the student in their view that, hey, look, you've got audio to listen to for this slide. Down in the bottom right-hand corner of their student view will be headphones that they'll click on to listen to that audio. So if you don't want them to miss this clue, you can make that bigger. If you don't want it to take up much of your slide, you can make it smaller. But again, that's just simply a clue for the students that they've got audio to listen to for this slide. All right, we are done. We have built our deck. The very last thing that I'm going to do is move this slide. It makes sense. We did this website slide last because it's the one that has probably the most steps to use. But I want to move it. So it makes more sense to put that as my second slide, to have the students tell me what they know, and then let's watch a video about it and move through the rest of these slides. So I'm going to click on the slide thumbnail and move it until I see that yellow line right after the first slide, and it's going to shift it to the second slide. We will not see the video here in our view. Students are going to see this video in their view. The video will show up on the right-hand side of their screen, and then this slide will be on the left-hand side of that video. So they will see this slide, but they're also going to see the video to play that video at their own pace. The only slide I did not cover is the number slide. And the number slide is just that. It's going to be for your numerical responses, and strictly numbers. So if you're typing a number like 250,000, no commas. You can do negative and you can do decimals, but you just need to know that decimal values will get rounded to the nearest whole number. So if you need to have some of those characters within a numerical answer or response, then you can simply use the text slide. You do not have to use the number slide for a number response. One thing that is nice about that number response, and a reason you may want to use it over a text response, is that it has the option to display those responses as a box and whisker plot. So if that type of viewing of those responses is really helpful to the question on that slide, to what you're talking about, then that number slide will work great as far as displaying those responses as a box and whisker plot. Otherwise, you can use the text slide for numerical responses as well. Okay, we are going to launch into a session, and then there's going to be an opportunity in the session to ask questions. So I do want to quickly show you how to start this as a lesson. So I'm going to ask you to stop with your deck for right now, and then when we're done with this webinar, definitely go back to this deck and start your own session and get in there and move around and see how to use that deck within the session. But for now, I'm going to go back to one that I created and start a session with this one. And I would love for you to join this session so that you can see what this looks like. But again, more information about sessions will be available in that Pear Deck Accelerated webinar if you want to do that one as your next step here. I'm going to open up that sidebar, and to start a session, I need to hit Start Lesson. You can select student paced or instructor paced. Student paced, the student's going to work on their own within that session. You'll provide them with a join code or a link, and you're not going to be in that session with them. They're going to work through that like an assignment, like an asynchronous assignment. Instructor paced is what we're going to do. That's more of your synchronous learning, whole group setting, where I'm going to be the one in charge of going through those slides. So to join the session, you can go to joinpd.com and type in this code, or you can go, I can give the students a link. So I'm going to click on Give Students a Link and put this into the chat. And actually, you know what? I'm going to open a new one here real quickly for you to join, because I think, and this will be a great thing to show you, in my Pear Deck settings, or in my Pear Deck account, there is a setting to make sure that you have the correct login selected for your students. So I was working in something today and I switched it to PowerPoint or to Microsoft, and I need it to be Google. So I can go into my settings and go to my account and go to settings and scroll down here and we'll double check. Yep, sure enough, I have Microsoft checked and I need Google for you all to join in here with me. So I'm going to switch that. Now that I have that enabled, I'm going to end this session. And we'll try this again. So this is what's great. This deck is already created. So I'm just going to come in and start a new session. So I'll start lesson, try number 2. We're going to do instructor paste. And now you should be able to join this session. So you'll see it's now going to give me a brand new 6-letter code because this is a brand new session. Still using the same Google Deck, but I'm just starting a brand new session. There we go. Now we've got people joining. So you can go to joinpd.com, type in this code. I'm going to now give you this link. So when you're on a remote call with your students, you can do this as well. Copy that link and paste it in the chat, and they can also just click on that link to access that session. The code is always up here. So if your students know to go to joinpd.com and you're not displaying answers, the code will appear up here. So they can always type this in and go to joinpd.com. Down here, I'm going to open this back up. We can see here the number of students who are joining. We'll see that keeps changing as people are logging in. I'm going to show you the student view here so you can see that if you are not logging in, the students are going to get, if you have this enabled in your account settings, this is also in your account settings, a quick check of how their day is going. This will appear by their name if you have that teacher dashboard. They're going to be on the same slide I am. They're not going to be able to move that slide. It's going to move at my pace. And so let's get to, you can click on this thumbnail and quickly scroll to where we want to start. I would like to start with this one. We're going to have to move fast. I apologize. I've taken it right up to the hour. In that student view, this is their text box. They can type their response in here. They don't even have to hit return. As soon as they type, it's going to give them a check mark that this is going through. In this projector view down here in your bar, your navigation bar, if you just hover over down here, this will pop up. We can show responses. So here we can see, we got a couple of those in a row. But you can scroll through here and you can share these responses and talk about these responses. Now I'm going to jump to the next slide, and when I jump, you're going to move. So if you're in the middle of writing a response, it's going to bump you to the next slide. This was the video, so I can go ahead and hit play. We'd all be at different places because, again, the students have control watching that video at their own pace. This had the audio, so I can click on the headphones and listen to that audio.
Please watch this video about the...
Back here in the presentation. This is that projector view. This is the draggable slide. I'm going to show responses because you can see everybody doing it in real time, moving those around in that view for the students. There's those draggables. If you wanted to control this a little bit, you can hold on lock screen and lock it right away. That's going to lock it in the student view so that you can talk about this without them playing around in their responses. Or I can hold down on the lock screen and select a timer and give them a certain amount of time. It'll put the timer in the projector view and it'll put the timer in their student view as well. So this was that choice slide. They simply are going to select the choice. Choice slides are great for really getting a quick glimpse of how your students are doing with understanding a certain concept. If I show responses, I can show those as a bar graph. I can show individual responses as well, but the bar graph is great for this to quickly see how your student responded. And again, there's no names associated with any of these responses, so all done anonymously. And if students see, ooh, looks like everybody's going with that one, I'm going to switch to that one. It's okay because they're understanding and they're seeing, okay, maybe it wasn't evaporation, it was transpiration. That is going to stick with them once again because they're just engaged. They're paying attention to what is going on in the lesson. This draw palette. Oops. There are all our tools. So again, every tool down here can draw right on here. This sizes all your tools. Text tool, you can just type in here. And then again, selecting all your colors. So once I selected a tool, selecting the color, and it'll show what colors it's selected here. Back in that projector view, I can show those responses. You can see everybody's. Okay, that was a quick overview. Like I said, this webinar is geared more towards that building of the deck, understanding those different Pear Deck tools. Pear Deck Accelerated is your next step. That one's going to go into greater detail, the actual session itself, and moving around and managing those responses in the session. If you don't mind, and you don't have to do it right now, because you are going to receive a takeaway that has every single slide and your response, as well as any link that's active within my session. So there will be a link to this in your takeaway, and you can do this webinar or this survey at that time that you get your takeaway to your email. But this is what it looks like in that student view. I do want to show you this. This is embedding a Google form using that website slide. So really awesome. If you are used to using Google Forms, students will complete that form right within here. And then all their responses are going to show up in your Google form that you've created. So great use of the website slide. Here is a resource page that you're also going to receive in that takeaway. All of these links will be active. So here are links to some different help resources that you can use. This is up the top here. These are the 2 recorded Pear Deck Accelerated webinars, one specific to PowerPoint and then this one for Google Slides. And I have taken this right up to the hour, but I do want to try to hit just a few of your questions. And whatever questions I don't hit, I apologize. But please reach out to help@peardeck.com because we are there to answer your questions to help you get started using Pear Deck, or if you've been using Pear Deck, to help you figure out how exactly it is that you're wanting to accomplish something in building your lesson and using those Pear Deck tools. But I'm going to show these responses here and try to go through just a couple of these before we sign off. So I want to do it again next week. I need asynchronous lessons for my high school kiddos. Are you wanting to use like the same lesson week after week, or are you talking about coming in and doing another webinar? There's one specific to remote learning. So we do have a webinar that is specific to student-paced, which is going to be more of that asynchronous learning. And that webinar is great for seeing how it works and setting it up and monitoring it in the teacher dashboard while your students are working. So we will get a receipt that we were here if we do, you will. So you'll get a follow-up email with a attendance certificate that you can copy and print or download and print. That will come. I don't know if it'll be right after it may be a few hours, possibly tomorrow, that you receive that. If you assign the Pear Deck through Classroom, would the students' names appear in the live session? So if you link it to Google Classroom, because we do have Google features, and Pear Deck Accelerated will touch on those Google features a little bit more, that will automatically load in your teacher roster. So within the teacher dashboard, you have a roster of students, and it will automatically load those students if you invite them through Google Classroom. But again, in that projector view, everything's anonymous. So you can invite your class, but as long as you're displaying responses in the projector view, no names will be displayed. Does this always have to be a blank slide to use Pear Deck as an add-on, or can the slides be more formatted? They can be more formatted. If you already have Google Slides lessons that you created, that's another beautiful thing about Pear Deck. Just open that Google Slides file, open that Pear Deck add-on, and just decide which one of those slides you want to make interactive by pulling in those Pear Deck tools. Will this load to Canvas? You can use Pear Deck with Canvas. For our district subscriptions, there's an actual integration with Canvas. If you are not on a district subscription, then you would simply use the link and copy and paste that link within your assignment in Canvas. Would you show the teacher dashboard again? So we didn't pull up the teacher dashboard. And if you would like to know more about the teacher dashboard, peek in on that accelerated webinar video that's included in your packet after this session, or sign up for that webinar live. They will look more into the teacher dashboard in that webinar. Do you have to trim Google Form to embed it? You do not have to trim it. In your Google Form, there's a send button. And if you click on the send button, that's where you're going to get that embeddable link. And so you're able to just copy that link, paste it into the website slide URL address window, and you're good to go. If you see that Google form in the preview, that's what students are going to see on their end. If you want to add a worksheet to use the annotation tool, do you need to set it as a watermark or just copy the worksheet? So your worksheet would be a JPEG image. So I believe Google Slides, you can use a PNG image, PNG, or JPEG image. If it's a PDF image, you're going to have to change that to a JPEG image. I don't think you're going to be able to place the PDF file, but you would simply go to Insert, up here, Image, and you're going to upload that probably from your computer or your drive, because you're probably going to have that image of that worksheet saved in one of these places. So you would go there to pull that into your slide. How do you create a Google form? That's a whole new or a whole different lesson. And I love Google Forms. So I would love to teach you about that. But that's probably for a different time. You can search, it's amazing what you can find online, but if you search how to create a Google form, I am sure you will find a video that someone has created out there that will walk you through the steps. They really are so nice to use in your classroom. Do students see your presentation in Pear Deck, like the non-interactive slides? Yes, any slide that I did not make interactive, students will see those as well. And we do suggest that you don't make every slide interactive, because it really can prolong, it can stretch that lesson out, make it pretty long. So just know that every slide does not have to be interactive, and students will see those slides that are not interactive. So Flipgrid and other embedded things won't require a student sign in, or it does, but just says, so if it requires a student sign in, they're just gonna, it's when they pull that up in their student view, it's like they're gonna be right there on the site in the tab. So if they have to log in, they'll be able to log in right in that student view. And it'll jump to opening that up for them right within the student view. It's going to be handled in the exact same manner as if they were going to a tab and starting in on that application on its own. They're just going to do that within that Pear Deck session. Okay, sorry, I took us way past, and I apologize for that. As you can see, there is just really so much information. And I think my biggest advice would be start with like 2 slides. Create 2 slides. If you're really new to this, just create maybe 2 slides or an exit ticket, and try launching that with your students and having them join that to complete it. Don't feel like you have to jump in and create these elaborate lessons right away. That's too intimidating if you haven't really worked with it. So start with one, an exit ticket, and see how that works with your students. And if you created the water cycle slide with me here today, that little lesson, on your own now, go back and start that as a session and start looking at some of those features within the session, and pull your teacher dashboard up if you already have access to that, and just start playing around with that and seeing the different tools in there. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us, because that is why we are here, to help answer any questions that you have getting going with Pear Deck in your classroom. So thank you so much for joining me today. Reach out if you have any questions. Have a wonderful rest of the day. So I'm going to come on real quick because someone left a great question in the chat about viewing it. And if you happen to be on here still, I hope I'm catching you. This is about viewing a session before students would see it. So you can do exactly what I did here today. Start your session and log into it as a student yourself. And that gives you a great way to preview and your session.